South East Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Tom Enright is now into the fourth year as the Chief Executive of Wexford County Council, and his economic development plans for each of the towns in the county are starting to take shape. Tom joins me now to provide us with a progress update on his ambitious plans. Tom, before we look at each of the towns in turn, what is a typical week for the Chief Executive of Wexford County Council?
Just before I answer that question, Karl, I'd just like to congratulate you as President of Wexford Chamber, Madeleine Quirk, the CEO, and the board and the staff for a fantastic night at the Business Awards. I think it really showcased all that's happening with business in Wexford. It was a very positive night, very upbeat. I think everybody enjoyed the occasion. And come back to your question then, what's a typical week for me? It varies hugely. You know, the County Council is a large organisation. We spend close on €200 million a year providing services for people here in the county. We have a staff of just under 1,000 people between full-time and temporary staff. So managing that is a big organisation. You come into work one day which you're thinking you have certain things in your diary, and that can suddenly change because of different things that happen. But I probably spend about 2 days a week in Dublin. If you're a chief executive of a local authority, you're expected to play your role in some of the national policy development committees in rolling out policy across a whole range of services at national level and engaging with other government departments in doing so. So I'm involved in a number of committees nationally and would spend quite a bit of time there. But also I've been in Dublin making business connections as well with, again, trying to attract business to Wexford. A lot of the people we're talking to in relation to that would be based in Dublin, so that brings me up there a bit. You know, we obviously have a lot of meetings in terms of with the councillors, in terms of developing policy, in terms of questions and queries the councils have in relation to the services for the people, the public that we all serve. So I said one week is different from the next, but that's very busy, it's very enjoyable, and I think there's a very good staff in the council that do a very good work.
Now, Tom, you have been the Chief Executive of Wexford County Council for almost 3.5 years now, but from an economic development perspective, are you happy with your achievements to date?
I am. I think we're making progress. It takes time, but I think, you know, we've set out our stall on what we need to do, and we're taking action on putting that in place. In order for us to improve the economy here, we had to carry out some research at the start to find out, well, what are the things that are wrong here. So we did a socioeconomic analysis, as you know, with University of Maynooth through their All Ireland Research Observatory Unit, which gave us the information in terms of the number of people employed in the county, where they live, the type of sectors they're employed in, how many people are travelling outside the county every day, and so on. And we also looked at the commercial property and what's available, because we knew there was a shortage of commercial property. So again, we looked at that in detail. So that allowed us to put plans together to decide on what do we need to do to provide commercial property solutions for businesses that want to expand, that are here already, which are having a problem finding the space to expand into, and certainly to attract new companies and new businesses into the county. We know that the IDA hasn't been bringing the jobs here, and the reason they haven't been doing that is that they've no place to put them. So we've put a huge effort into developing property solutions for business, and we've acquired a number of sites in key areas in order to do that, and so that's something I think that we've made a good progress on. But this is something that can't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of time, but I think you'll see over the next 12 to 24 months significant progress being made with the new projects and new buildings coming on stream that we're confident will bring extra jobs in significant numbers into the county. Now,
Tom, the reason I've asked you to join me on this morning's show is to provide us with an update on the status of those proposed economic development projects right across the county. So let's start in Gorey. The first of your golden eggs hatched a few weeks ago when you launched the Hatch Lab in the new M11 business campus. The Hatch Lab is a new tech incubator space designed specifically for technology companies. You've partnered with Bank of Ireland to help attract businesses into the lab, but how many jobs do you expect the Hatch Lab to create over the next 12 months?
It's difficult to put a figure on that. What I can say is that the building that's been built in Gorey is a 36,000 square foot building that we've partnered with Tom and Paddy Redmond Construction to build. That building can hold 350 people. So Jim Hughes' company Innovate are going into part of that building, into about 5,000 square feet, and we are putting the Hatch Lab in the other 5,000 square feet. So we would expect that building will be full over the next 12 months or so, and we think that quite a few of the jobs that will fill that building will come from outside of the county. We already see with the Hatch Lab, which is, as you say, it's our incubation space for small technology companies. We already have just under 30 small companies, and some of those could be single people, some of them could be a few people that have expressed an interest at one space there. So we'll be opening up that facility at the end of June, and we'll be providing space for those companies within the Hatch Lab. It's the first of its kind that's been done in Wexford. And we've partnered with Bank of Ireland, who are putting their workbench program into the Hatch Lab as well, and they've only done that in the cities in Dublin, Cork, Limerick and Galway. They started their first one in Grand Canal Square in Dublin in their branch, and they now have 3 of these workbench facilities in Dublin, and we're the first to get one into a rural location. And the workbench that'll be in with our Hatch Lab in Gorey will provide services to not just to people in Wexford, but people in Carlow, Kilkenny and Wicklow as well. So I expect us to see huge activity in that centre. We're already getting a lot of interest in it, and we already have met with some companies that want to be there. I see that building being a great catalyst to bring jobs into North County Wexford.
Now, Brendan MacDonald has recently replaced Anne-Marie Tierney-Leroux as the South East Regional Manager for the IDA. This must be a real frustration for you, having spent so much time developing a relationship with Anne-Marie with a view to her attracting IDA companies to the county. But how confident are you that the IDA will attract businesses to the Hatch Lab in Gorey?
I'm very confident they will. The IDA have viewed the building on 3 occasions already.
But did the IDA come alone, or did it?
No, the IDA came alone to look at the space, to see what the standard of and specification of the building is, to see what the broadband speed capacity is, to get a perspective of the building so that they can go and market it. And they will be marketing that the building in Gorey, not just nationally here but internationally as well, and they've already started that. And I think Anne-Marie Tierney-Leroux, who was a regional manager here in the South East, was I think of great help and was starting to make progress with us. And we haven't lost Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie's been promoted in the IDA, and she's now in charge of all of the regions in Ireland. And Brendan MacDonald has just taken over from Anne-Marie in the last 2 weeks in her old role. But I still think we'll still be engaging with Anne-Marie. She's now is covering the country in terms of all the regions, and I think she is committed to delivering jobs into the South East and in here to Wexford. But we've now ticked that box that the IDA have been saying to us, and that we know ourselves that we hadn't had the quality office space for companies to attract them here. Now we've done that, and now we expect the IDA to step up now and help us to get companies in there.
There's a huge lack of industry in Gorey. There seems to be an over-reliance on retail and, of course, tourism. But what has been done by Wexford County Council to develop the tourism offering for North County Wexford?
At the moment, we're doing quite a bit of work, which has taken longer than we would have hoped, on the harbour in Courtown, which can make that more accessible. We'd love to see a hotel being built, a new hotel being built in Courtown. We think that's needed. We think that would be great for tourism there, and we're talking to the owner of the site there to try and advance that project. We're looking at putting a greenway, a cycle path and walkway from Courtown into Gorey as well. There is about a mile short on that at the moment, so we're hoping to make that connection. So we're also looking at, as you know, developing a Norman trail as well, from the north of the county down to the south, all the way from Rosslare across to New Ross, and we'll go up to Kilkenny. But that network will go up to North Wexford as well. So there's a lot of work going on in the tourism front. We have a major project planned for Enniscorthy town centre for tourism. The council owns the castle there, and the Athenaeum is owned by a trust. But we're looking at around that whole area of a significant tourist development, which would have a mixture of heritage and tourism retail, because once the bypass is put in place, we need to get people off that road into Enniscorthy, and we think Enniscorthy has great potential as being a strong tourist town, together with New Ross as well. So
is your vision for Enniscorthy post bypass very much focused around tourism?
It's around tourism. Certainly, I think tourism is totally underdeveloped in Enniscorthy. Enniscorthy is a very, very attractive town in a lot of ways, and once the traffic is taken out of there, particularly the heavy goods vehicles, I think it'll make it a much more pleasant environment for people to be able to walk around and stroll around. And you look at Enniscorthy, very little of it has changed in the last 50 years. I mean, there's some lovely old shop fronts there. Slaney Street is a wonderful street, but problem you have with Enniscorthy is that you don't have the footfall and the numbers that you'd like to bring people in, that to that can avail of retail and other businesses in the town centre. I think the bypass gives a great opportunity to Enniscorthy to reimagine itself. It gives us a chance to put some funding into the public realm there and make that a better and more pleasant space. And it gives us a chance to look at a redevelopment of the town centre, which I think is going to be an expensive project because, I think it's a project that's going to cost somewhere between 5 and 10 million. But I think Enniscorthy needs that to lift it from where it is at the moment, to make it into a strong tourist destination location that will attract people to come off the motorway and come into it. And it's a lovely location, has a lot to offer, needs to be presented better, needs to be developed better, and needs to be marketed better.
Staying with Enniscorthy, Tom, from a job creation perspective, what major projects are in store for Enniscorthy?
When you look at Enniscorthy, it's very hard to find suitable land that's close to the town centre. But what we wanted was, and we knew there's a demand for it, is to build a quality business park for the town. The old Dublin Road has a mix of different types of businesses on it, but it's quite a distance away from the town centre. So many of the people that work there come there and go away again. The town doesn't benefit as much as it should. So we've recently acquired a 38-acre site just north of St. Senans for what we're calling a business and technology park. So what we want here is a quality business park that would provide for advanced manufacturing type of companies, some office space in a very nice location that is overlooking the River Slaney, that is very close to the town centre, and with the new bridge that we're advancing with the flood relief scheme that's to be built just below the Riverside Park Hotel, that comes across right onto this field that we've purchased. So it will be, you walk across the bridge and you're at the hotel, so it'll be very close to the town centre there. And we're talking to a number of companies at the moment that have an interest in locating there. We've appointed project architects for that scheme to put in the infrastructure. So that's the roads, the footpaths, the lighting, the landscaping, and high quality broadband together with the water services that need to go onto that site. And so we'll be starting construction on that towards the end of this year. In the meantime, then we'll be working with some companies that are looking at this space as well for them to advance their own planning and to build their own developments on that site. I think you'll have, by the end of next year, we'd expect to have the first 2 buildings at least on the site, if not more.
New Ross is our next destination on this morning's road trip, Tom. You have planning permission to construct 2 advanced manufacturing facilities totalling 35,000 square feet in Bottlersland Business Park. But what has been the delay in getting these constructed? Well,
there hasn't been a delay as such, because we've 2 buildings there, one of 10,000 square foot and one of 25,000 square feet, and they're on our land in what's known as Bottlersland beside Lake Region in New Ross. We had been talking to the IDA to see could we get interest from the IDA to construct these buildings. They have built a 25,000 square foot advanced factory in Waterford, and they have plans to build one in Carlow, so we were trying to attract them to build one here. So in the absence of that happening, we're going to go ahead now and probably build a larger one first. And again, as part of the expressions of interest, we'll be looking for partners for Enniscorthy for the property there. We'll also be in the same process, we'll be looking for partners for New Ross. So it's in around the same time frame. We'll be tying down those partners over the next number of months, and we'll be getting them to construct. And I suppose the model we'll be following will be very similar to what we've done in Gorey to get the new 36,000 square foot commercial office space built there. Is that what we will do is we will guarantee a lease rate well below market level in order to give the incentive for private investors to put the investment in to build the property. In the meantime, while it's being built, then we will hope to line up clients, and once it gets built, then hopefully that stage we'll be close to or have got clients for it, and then we will withdraw from it. But our commitment and putting our resources behind this, we think, is a catalyst to make it happen.
And for the benefit of any listeners from New Ross this morning, can they expect to see the first of these advanced manufacturing facilities built in Bottlersland Business Park in New Ross sometime in 2018?
I think we will. That's subject to us getting a suitable partner tied down, but again, we have a number of people that are interested, and the development of the site in New Ross is probably easier than Enniscorthy because a lot of the infrastructure is in place. All the services are there, whereas in Enniscorthy we have to build those. We spend about €2 million in Enniscorthy building the infrastructure to open up that land as a business and technology park. So I think I'd be again hopeful in 2018 that you'll see these new property solutions being provided in both Enniscorthy and New Ross. which then we can market to attract companies here.
Now, there are a myriad of large derelict development sites in New Ross Town. Are there any projects in the pipeline regarding those, Tom?
There are. There's two kind of sites in New Ross across from the Dunbrody that would be owned by Dunn Stores that bought them a while back in order to develop a new retail centre, and that hasn't progressed, and we're currently leasing those from Dunn Stores as a car park. But we'd hope that we'll see interest in developing those sites coming back over the next while. There are a number of derelict sites in the town as well. We're looking at, we've agreed to purchase one. We're in the process of purchasing a second, which is a site at the old Royal Hotel, and we're looking at building a new public park on that site, which would lead up to Mary's Church, to St. Mary's Church, which we think can be developed as a nice tourism trail. And we're also looking at a couple of brownfield sites in the town centre that we think would be ideal for a hotel. And maybe that can happen in the next year or two, but certainly we see that there is potential to grow further the tourism numbers in New Ross, particularly as it bypassed. And I think if you want to hold on to tourists and you want them to spend more money, you need to have places for them to stay. So we think there's a need for a quality hotel in the town centre. So we may use our own compulsory purchase powers to acquire a site if we can, and make that available then to some company that might want to come in and develop a hotel over the next number of years. There is a need to get people off the quayfront in New Ross and up into the main street. At the moment, as you've often said yourself, Karl, buses pull up, people get out of the bus, go into the Dunbrody, get back on the bus, and they're gone. So with the bypass, we think a lot of traffic will be gone off the quayfront. It'll be easier for people to migrate up into the town. But what we need to do is to have a proper developed tourism offering that will attract them up into the town, and that's something that we're talking to the Dunbrody about at the moment. But again, it's something that's needed, I think, very much in New Ross, that so as the visitor numbers come, that they just don't disappear, that they're brought up into the town, and that they go and see there's great history and heritage within the town of New Ross as well. And so we'd ideally like to be getting people not just into the town centre, but even beyond that, and up into St. Mary's as well, and to follow that whole Norman heritage that's in the town itself. We're also looking at, from the economic development perspective, we're looking at developing a similar project at a Hatch Lab in Gorey, in an old building in New Ross. And Waterford Institute of Technology are very happy to partner with us on developing kind of incubation space there for small companies, and that's something that we're advancing at the moment as well.
Now, you joined me on the show early last year to announce the Trinity Wharf development in Wexford Town. What progress has been made on the project since then?
Well, we acquired the Trinity Wharf site in February of last year, and it's a wonderful site. I just had a potential investor looking at it recently, and just walking it again on a nice day. It's a lovely 10-acre site that goes out into the harbour in Wexford, and I think you couldn't but be impressed by anyone who looks at it. So what we've done since then is we've appointed Scott Talon Walker, who are a large firm of architects in Dublin. We've appointed them for two projects in Wexford Town here. One is the Quayfront project, which they're at an advanced stage of finalising the plans on, and the second is to do a master plan for the Trinity Wharf site. So they're working on that at the moment, and by the autumn we'll be doing public consultation on the master plan. In the meantime, we've also appointed RPS consultants in Belfast to design a marina for us on the Trinity Wharf site, because our vision for that site is a mixed-use development of a hotel, large-scale office, quality office space, some cultural or civic building, and some residential development together with the public park as well. With the boardwalk then that would link back to the quayfront just adjacent to the Talbot Hotel. So that's our kind of vision for it, and what the architects are doing is they're pulling that together in a plan. We've been talking to a number of private investors who are very interested in partnering with us on that project. Again, we'll put in the infrastructure. That's the roads, the services, the marina. We have to repair the quay walls there. So we'll be spending several million euros on that site, and then bring in private investors then to build the commercial property solutions. But we think it's a a site that could have a huge positive impact on the town, with creating a space where 1,000 people or more could be working over the next 5 to 10 years, and a development that could really put Wexford on the map in a very positive way, and I think bring a lot of activity as well to that end of the South Main Street and that end of the town. We had to be careful with the design of the marina that we don't interfere with the shellfish licenses that are in the harbour that are currently being operated. And we know that we're, in terms of the capital cost of the marina, that we will get very little support for that in terms of grant, and we know that we won't get an income that will repay it. But what we want the marina to do really is to bring activity into the town. We operate the marinas in Kilmore Quay and in New Ross, and they bring a lot of business into those locations. A lot of tourists coming from the UK and from the continent stop off there because it's the first point of call. We know that if we have a marina in Wexford, we would draw a lot of business here as well. But we'd also create the environment and ambience around the Trinity Wharf site that will allow the hotel, office space, bars, restaurants, cultural facilities on the site as well. So we think that'll all add to a very attractive location within the town. And again, we'll have the master plan, as I said, completed this autumn, and we'll be advertising then through a process to tie down preferred partners with us of developing the site in 2 or possibly 3 phases. One person we're talking to want to develop the whole thing in one go. I'm not sure that's the right thing for the town, because we could end up with a lot of empty space. So we're looking at developing that in possibly 2, maybe 3 phases, with construction again starting on that probably towards the end of next year. But I think within 2 to 3 years we'll see a number of buildings on that site, which I think will attract a lot of attention.
So are you saying by 2020 we would expect to see buildings in situ?
Certainly, yes. Yeah, we've I suppose one of the frustration things of my job is that the planning process that we have to go through, and the same as any major development, it takes time. So before you can put a spade in the ground and start construction work, you have to get permitting. You've got to get planning in place. As I said, in this case we have to get foreshore licensing, which is outside of our control, and we have to ensure and talk to people we trust to see the approach we're taking that makes sense, and that we're building something that is needed and that will work well. So we've been through a lot of that at this stage, and now our focus is on driving on now and delivering. So I think certainly by 2020 you'll see a major difference in terms of Trinity Wharf and its development and the positive impact it can have on the town here.
Now, financial services is very much your focus for Wexford Town, but is financial services the right strategy for Wexford? As I look ahead at the possible impact of artificial intelligence, it's predicted that over the next 10 years, all financial companies will be turned upside down with artificial intelligence, replacing traders, bankers, accountants, insurance staff, and especially back office roles.
Yeah, it's difficult to predict the future, and I'm not going to try and do that. People tell us in 10 years' time nobody will drive a car; they'll all be self-drive and they'll all be electric. It is difficult to know what the future brings. All I can say is that our focus at the moment is to attract internationally traded services, companies which would include financial services. We know with Brexit that there is huge interest in companies in the UK locating into Ireland. You read that every week in the newspapers. We know from contacts we have that is the case. We also know that the property market in Dublin won't be able to cope with the influx of companies coming. And while certain companies will have to be and want to be in the capital city in Dublin, many of them will need to have back office operations or even front office operations that are outside of Dublin. And we see a great opportunity for us providing those here in Wexford.
Now, an awful lot of the projects that you've outlined to me this morning, Tom, quite long-term projects in that they're still 2, 3, 4, 5 years away from completion. The fear here in Wexford, really within the business community, is that if Tom Enright goes off and becomes the CEO of Dublin City Council, in the meantime, those projects mightn't see completion. Are you committed to finishing these projects out?
Well, I think these projects won't take that long to do. As I said, we've spent the last 2 years or more in the planning stage. We're now getting to the stage where we can start delivering these projects. So I think over the next 2 to 3 years that you'll see a major difference on these. And I'm committed to Wexford. I think it's a great place to be. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm committed to making sure that we deliver these projects now as quickly as we can over the next number of years.
The fact that we don't have a third level facility here in County Wexford is certainly a drawback. Realistically at this point, Tom, how likely is it that we'll ever see a university for the South East?
I don't know. I mean, it's something I'm not directly involved in, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be a prospect that's going to be delivered in the short term, and I think it's an awful shame. I think Waterford Institute of Technology and Carlow IT, I think, need really to get moving on, and I think the time that's been taking stalling and not advancing this is to the detriment of the South East. We're the only part of Ireland, the only region of Ireland that doesn't have a university, and the research we've done shows that Wexford, depending on what study you look at, has the second or third lowest participation rate in third level college compared to any of the other counties in the country. And I think part of the reason is that university education is not available here in the South East, and it's very expensive for a lot of parents to send their kids off to Dublin to get a third level education. So it's a huge issue, and I just hope that the powers that be within the two colleges will start to make progress on coming together and putting together a proper application for a technology university for the South East. It's of huge importance, and I know from talking to many of the councillors in the county council that they've been pushing this for a long time and are frustrated with the slow progress that's been made.
Tom, you and I have spoken on numerous occasions about the prospect of weatherproofing retailers in Wexford Town. Can you provide us with an update in relation to this project?
Certainly, while we are in the sunny southeast, we do get inclement weather at times, and that can be an issue. Certainly, and I've seen this done in some European cities by putting in some kind of what look like canvas kind of coverings that are stretched from across the street, which don't provide full cover but provide a lot of shelter. That can be done in different colours. That can be done very attractive. They can be like umbrellas. They're made of polytetraethylene. It's a PTFE. It's kind of a robust kind of material that lets the light through but keeps the rain out. So that's something that we're looking at the moment to see could that be done in a section of the main street as a pilot and see how that would work. And it would provide some shelter but still let the light through, because what you don't want, the main street is quite narrow. You don't want to put a covering over that might make it dark. You want to try and let as much light in as possible. So that's something that we're looking at the moment.
And what's your timeline for that pilot?
Realistically, it's probably into next year. It's quite straightforward to construct. You do need third-party permission from the building owners to suspend the covering from them.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.